Hello everyone and welcome back. 안녕하세요. 반갑습니다. Last week, I shared a bit about the flu days in my household and how they helped me reflect on the way I take care of my daughter. I was doing Korean parenting when my daughter was sick. Then I realized that the way I cared for my daughter wasn't just personal, it was cultural. So this episode is about that, the culture of care, with a focus on Korean parenting style, because after all, this podcast is about understanding Korea one story at a time. And if you read this week's newsletter essay, great, stick with me, because I'm going to tell you the parts I couldn't quite fit on the page. The moments that felt too personal to write down but feel right to say out loud. So first, let me tell you what happened and what I did. We had just come back from a beautiful family trip to Vietnam and Korea. You know the usual souvenirs, photos, jet lag, and the kind of full-hearted gratitude that makes you swear you will rest more in the new year. Then, the very next night, my daughter spiked a fever. If you are parenting in the US or anywhere shaped by US-style pediatric culture, you probably recognize the caregiving software that boots up at moments like this. You check the temperature, you monitor breathing. You run through the mental checklist: hydration, medication, symptoms, energy level. Of course, I did all of that and more. I opened the food massage book I keep in my bedroom, the one that shows you exactly which parts of the food to press for which symptoms. I gave her medicine, worked on bringing the fever down, and at the same time, I found the spots the book recommends for colds and started pressing those points on her feet. My husband worked on her hands. We co-sleep anyway, so there was no need to move her to another room. The three of us already share a king-sized bed. Let me shift briefly and talk about co-sleeping because I think it's more common in Korea than in the US. If you think about it, co-sleeping, parents and children sleeping in the same bed or at least in the same room, has been the human norm for most of history. It's only in the 20th century West that solitary sleep became the standard. In the US, many parents assume it's natural to have children sleep separately for the sake of the parents' sleep quality and the child's independence. Of course, when a child is sick, plenty of parents camp out in the child's room for a night or two. Some make a temporary deal, a few nights in the parent's bed, then back to normal. Still, if the illness isn't severe, many families try to keep the usual setup and have the child sleep in their own bed, just with more check-ins and comfort. In Korea, we have a different map. For safety reasons, Korean parents also often have newborns sleep alone in a crib. But once they graduate from the crib, many children move straight into the parent's bed. A 2002 study found that nearly 88% of Korean children between the ages of 1 and 7 slept with their parents. The researchers explained this not as a failure of training, but as a reflection of values. Family bonds and interpersonal interdependence matter more than early independence. Is that exact percentage still true today? I honestly do not know. That study is more than 2 decades old. But when I look at Korean moms around me, it still doesn't feel rare. Not even close. And I'm part of that story. My daughter had a crib in our room as an infant. But since she was about 6 months old, she has shared our king-sized bed. My American mom friends sometimes ask very gently, but what about your sleep quality? I'll be honest, it's not great. I get kicked in the ribs. I wake up to a cold foot on my neck. At least once a week, I open my eyes at 3 a.m. and realize she has rotated 180 degrees in her sleep. Her feet are on my pillow, her toes somehow inches from my face. But I keep choosing it for three reasons. First, three of us, my husband, my daughter, and I all want it. Our daughter wants to sleep together, and honestly, my husband and I love having her next to us too. We both love falling asleep hearing her breathing. Second, I know the window for these cuddles is closing fast. And third, I want her to wake from a nightmare and realize instantly that she is not alone. So when she got sick, distance zero was not a special choice. It was the default setting. And if you're worried that bed sharing automatically equals long-term harm, the newer research I have seen suggests it is not that simple. Associations vary a lot depending on context, and some studies have found no clear long-term link to children's internalizing or externalizing behavior problems. But here is the deeper point. In Korean caregiving, closeness is not a vibe. It's a form of responsibility. Now let's talk about the part that, in my opinion, goes beyond just being close. In the US, care often becomes a linguistic exercise. Parents ask questions like, where does it hurt? Can you describe what it feels like? Are you sad, scared, frustrated? There is a whole parenting language around helping children name what's happening inside them. Some people call it emotional coaching. Some call it emotional literacy. And to be clear, I do this too. I ask my daughter to describe her symptoms. I ask her to name her feelings. I'm raising her in America, so of course I'm raising her in that language as well. But in Korea, words are rarely the whole story. In Korea, we also speak through our hands. There is a phrase every Korean child knows with rhythm. 엄마 손은 약손. Yes, that's how we say it. Mom's hand is her healing hand. It's not just a cute nursery rhyme. It's a tactile technology. When my daughter's stomach aches, I rub her belly in slow rhythmic circles. I massage her feet using a specific foot reflexology book I keep on my nightstand. And I want to say this plainly because I really mean it. In my experience, this works. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm not telling anyone to replace a pediatrician with a foot massage. We take our daughter to a pediatrician whenever she is sick. I'm simply sharing what I've observed again and again with my own eyes and hands. When we combine medical care with the home remedies and touch-based rituals I grew up with, she seems to recover faster, and she certainly feels more settled and cared for along the way. When my daughter says her head hurts or her stomach aches, I press specific points on her hands or feet based on hand and foot reflexology principles, and she genuinely feels better. So much so that now, when she is not feeling well, she asks for her hands and feet to be massaged first. My husband and I often tag team. I work on her hands while he massages her feet. And I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. Even if Western medicine doesn't fully know what to do with this, I consider it a form of treatment. It also regulates fear. It calms the body. It helps a child settle into sleep, which is not a small thing. It turns pain into something held, not something endured alone. Let me explain the foot massage part a little more, because on a paper it can sound like, I don't know, something you buy at an airport gift shop. But the way I use it is very concrete. The book I keep by my bed basically treats the foot like a map. It lists symptoms and then it says, here are the areas you press, here is the direction, here is how long you do it, and here is what to watch for. Headache? It tells you where on the foot that corresponds. Stomach ache? Different area. Trouble sleeping? Another. Even restlessness or cannot focus has a suggested pattern. Now, I'm not claiming this is a scientifically proven diagnostic system. What I am saying is it gives a parent something to do that is both tender and focused. And in my house, it's become a ritual. When my daughter feels sick, she asks for the foot massage first because she knows what it does to her body. It slows her down. It warms her up. It gives her a sense of being cared for in a way words cannot quite reach. And I can tell you this, sometimes it works faster than anything else in the room. Now, let's talk about 수지침, because this is one of the most Korean parts of my caregiving memory. When I was growing up in Korea, my mother learned 수지침 and 봉침, bee venom therapy, at a traditional Korean medicine clinic. 수지침 is often described in English as Korean hand acupuncture or acupressure. The basic idea is that the hand is a microcosm of the body, like a miniature map. Each region and point on the hand corresponds to an organ or body part. So in that system, the hand becomes this tiny terrain of the whole human body. And my mother took it seriously. She learned it, she practiced, and she brought it home. We had the actual tools in our house. It wasn't just the vague, let me press your hand situation. There were little instruments, charts, points that were memorized like homework. And my mother didn't only use it on us. I remember neighborhood adults coming to our house late at night when they had a sudden severe indigestion, what we call 급체 in Korean. You know that kind of stomach pain where someone is sweating, bent over, panicking, and the whole house feels tense. They would come to our home. My mother would treat them, and then they would leave looking lighter. I saw it happen enough times that it shaped my definition of care. Care wasn't only a doctor's office. Care was also a mother who knows what to do with her hands. And then there was 봉침, bee venom therapy. Yes, the actual flying, stinging bees. This is the part where my story becomes slightly unbelievable if you didn't grow up Korean. When I was in ninth grade, my whole family moved to Thailand. We lived in Bangkok. I was one of those Korean high school students who basically lived at a desk. You know the stereotype. Exercise only during PE, then sit all day, studying until your legs swell and your shoulders turn into stone. That was me. Why? Well, I grew up in the generation that didn't start real English early. Korean kids today often start English very young. But for my generation, many of us started in middle school, grade 7. I still remember classmates entering middle school knowing the alphabet only in uppercase. Some kids literally knew ABC, but not how to write a lowercase a. So imagine this. I had about 2.5 years of school English, and then I moved to Thailand and entered an international school where classes were taught in English. It was brutal. I studied like my life depended on it because it kind of felt like it did. And my body paid the price. My legs were always swollen. My shoulders were always tight. My neck always felt stuck. And that is when bee venom therapy became a very specific kind of relief. Here's what happened. Once a year during summer vacation, we would visit Korea. My mother received bee venom therapy, was amazed by it, learned it herself at a traditional clinic there, and then came back to Thailand. And then, because my mother is my mother, she did not let that be the end of it. She ordered a beehive from Chiang Mai, a city in the mountains of northern Thailand. We lived in Bangkok, and when the beehive arrived, she kept the bees on my younger brother's balcony. Yes, on the balcony. This meant that my younger brother, a teenage boy who did not consent to any of this, would try to sleep while bees occasionally wandered into his personal space. He would get furious and say something like, "Can you please do something about the bees?" And my mother, completely unfazed, would basically treat the bees like part of the household. Now, bee venom therapy, in simple terms, is the use of bee venom to stimulate a localized immune and inflammatory response. Traditional clinics use it for things like chronic pain and inflammation. It is not causal. It can cause allergic reactions. It is definitely not something I'm recommending here. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm telling a story. But I can also tell you from my lived experience, it really worked. When my mother applied the bee venom therapy to my tight shoulders or aching areas, it was like something unclenched. It felt intensely cooling and releasing, almost like the muscle finally got permission to let go. And I remember how immediate the relief felt. And I just remember watching the whole scene thinking my mother's hands carry a kind of authority. Not official authority, but practical authority. The kind that makes people feel safe. So when my daughter gets sick in Seattle and my hands start moving automatically, it's not random. It comes from a lineage of home care, a culture where care is not only a set of instructions, it's also a set of embodied techniques, a language, a ritual. And yes, I also do the American things. I ask my daughter to name what she is feeling. I ask her to describe symptoms. I try to give her agency over her body. But my hands are already moving. Forehead first, then belly, then feet, then hands. And I want to say this again because it's the core claim of this episode. Based on my own experience, I genuinely believe this goes beyond just the comfort of being close. I'm not a medical doctor. I cannot fully explain mechanisms. But I have enough lived experience in my own body and in my daughter's body to believe this is real. This is a form of treatment. It may not fit neatly into Western frameworks, but it is healing as my culture understands it. Neither approach is inherently better or worse. They reflect the different cultural assumptions about what a human being needs, when they are most vulnerable. The American model tends to value recovery plus the maintenance of age-appropriate independence. The Korean model tends to value recovery plus reinforcement of the safety net. Raising a daughter in America, I find myself living in both worlds at once. I ask her, "Where does it hurt? Can you describe how it feels?" I help her name her pain. But my hands are already moving. I press the points my mother taught me. I murmur softly in Korean. I fall asleep mid-circle, hand still on her foot, because my body won't let me stop touching her when she's sick. My mind lives in the US, but my body still reacts in Korean. There is a beautiful side to this proximity culture, but there's also a hidden pressure. Behind this intense caregiving, one can ask, why do Korean parents feel like they have no choice but do all of this? Why can't we just wait and see? Next week, I'll be reviewing a book that helped me see this through a more sociological lens. 오찬호's The Sociology of Marriage and Childcare, 결혼과 육아의 사회학 in Korean. We will talk about what happens when parenting becomes a high-stakes performance and when love gets tangled up with anxiety, judgment, and survival. If you're listening and you're a parent, I'd love to hear from you. When your child gets sick, what does your body do automatically? What is the first thing you reach for? Routine, space, closeness, a specific soup, a specific prayer, a specific grandmother-approved ritual? I really want to hear from you. All right, take care of yourselves and each other. This is Jiwon, and I'll talk to you soon. 오늘도 들어주셔서 감사합니다. 다음 주에 만나요. Bye!